Welcome to the Multiply Your Success podcast, where each week we help growth-minded entrepreneurs and franchise leaders take the next step in their expansion journey. I'm your host, Tom Dufour, CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And as we open today, I'm wondering how you would say or respond to how well your team, or maybe you are, in sales. Do you have a sales process? And if you do you follow that sales process? Well, our guest today is Nikki Rausch, who shares with us her selling process called the Selling Staircase to help you build and keep to a selling process. Now, Nikki is the CEO of Sales Maven, and she has the unique ability to transform the misunderstood process of selling. With more than 25 years of selling experience, entrepreneurs and small business owners now hire Nikki to show them how to sell successfully and authentically. Nikki has written 3 books, all available on Amazon, one of which we discuss in our interview today. Nikki is the host of her own podcast called Sales Maven, which you can find on your favorite podcast platform. So let's go ahead and jump right into my interview with Nikki Rausch.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Nikki Rausch. My title is the CEO of Sales Maven. That's the name of my company.
Love the company here, love the company name Sales Maven, and that's really what we're here to talk about today is really sales and driving sales and different approaches. And you're an expert on this. You've written several books, and one of those books is on the selling staircase. And I just think that's fascinating. I love the name behind it and the overall structure. At the very least, I'd like to open up, if you wouldn't mind, by just giving our audience an overview about the book. And then let's dig into a little bit about the process and the selling staircase.
Sure. So the selling staircase is my signature framework for a sales conversation. And I break it down into the 5 steps. And the idea is that most people understand that when you are going to ascend a staircase, you go one step at a time, right? Like you don't stand at the bottom and try to hop to the top step because that you might bang your shins or you might trip or something or sprain your ankle, right? And the thing about sales conversations is that most people try to skip steps because they're nervous, because they're not sure what to do, they're not sure what to say. And that leads to, this breakdown between you and the other person feeling like pushy or salesy or like, oh, what's going on here? I don't even know why we're having this conversation. So the idea is to give people a structure that allows for them to follow step by step how to have a successful sales conversation. And so the book just goes through all 5 steps in detail and gives stories and examples about, what are you doing on this step and how do you move somebody to the next step? And again, the whole idea behind it is to allow for your authentic personality and your genuine ability to have a conversation with somebody to come through and to be strategic so that you get to that place where you ultimately exchange dollars for services or you bless and release somebody who's not a good fit for your business.
I like those 2 phrases you used there where you essentially agree to do business together, or I like the bless and release. I think that's great. That's a nice way of saying it's not going to work. One of the things I'd like to do, because I love how-tos and I love how-to books. So let's take a few minutes and at least have you talk through your stair steps and the methodology that you work through and go through, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. And I'll go into as much detail as you want, so you tell me, but I'll break down the 5 steps first and foremost. So step 1 is the introduction step. And the idea here is for you to make a powerful first impression. Now, that first impression can happen on your website. It can happen on social media. It can happen when somebody meets you at an event or somebody recommends you, right? Or they hear you on a podcast. Like a first impression is being formed. So can you set yourself up to make a powerful first impression? That's step 1. Step 2 is to create curiosity. This is the most missed step in the whole sales process. Most of the time when I ask a business owner, do you know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your product, your service, or your business? They get this look like, what now? What do you mean create curiosity? Like, I never thought about it. But the idea is if you're not able to create curiosity, when you're having conversations or somebody's exposed to you or your work, they might not know what's possible for them. They don't know what you know. They don't know what they're going to get when they hire you or they buy your product. So we have to pique people's curiosity. We have to want them to want to lean in, want to know more, and have questions for us. So learning how to create curiosity is crucial to your success. Once you do that, what happens most of the time when you create curiosity with a potential buyer is they start giving you buying signals. Now, I actually wrote a whole book. That's my second book, is just about buying signals. And a buying signal is a verbal or nonverbal cue that somebody gives that indicates interest. So when you get a buying signal, the next logical step is to move them to step 3 in the process, which I call discovery. A lot of people call it the consult call or the sales call or, the presentation. I actually don't care what you call it. What I care is what you do in it. And the objective in the discovery is to find out what's going on for this person or this company. Do they have a need? Do they have a want? And do I have a solution that meets that need or solves the problem, meets that want? And do I have permission to put that solution in front of them? So that's what you're doing in the discovery step. Once you've identified, yes, this person has a need. Yes, I have a solution, and I've gotten their permission to put an offer in front of them, you move to step 4, which is proposal. That may be really formal depending on the kind of business that you're doing. But for many of us, it's just still part of the conversation where you're actually laying out your offer. Step 4 to me is where the selling happens. This is when you're matching your solution to meet their problem, solve their need, and you're standing in your place of expertise and making a recommendation for them. And then step 5 goes very closely with step 4, and that's the close. And the close is actually getting close language out of your mouth. That's that issuing that final invitation to hire you, to take that next step, to buy the product. And this is the second most misstep, by the way. A lot of times when I work with business owners and they feel like, gosh, I'm having these great conversations, I'm having a lot of interest from people, we're getting a lot of traffic to our website or, whatever it is, but people actually aren't taking that next step. Oftentimes it's because they're not issuing that close language. They're not making it easy for somebody to make a decision in the moment when they're in that conversation with you or at your place of business or checking out your offerings. So we have to close. So those are the 5 steps: introduction, curiosity, discovery, proposal, and close.
In the introduction piece, you described it as a powerful introduction. So that stood out to me.
Okay.
And so I'd just like to have you fill in a little bit about what that means. Add a little more context to that.
It kind of comes back to, people are making judgments about you and about your business. And even though there's many people now that like to walk around and say, like, I'm an evolved human, I don't judge a book by its cover. That's nice for them. But realistically, it's important that you recognize that people are making judgments about you and your business. So what kind of impression is being made when they come visit your website? Is it laid out? Is it clean? Is it easy for them to navigate? That establishes a first impression. When they walk into your place of business, again, is it clean? Is it welcoming? Do people know what to do when they come into your place of business or when they get on a call with you? Do they know what's going to happen? If they don't, all of these things break down rapport with people. If people feel unsafe or they're not sure what to do or say, or, a prospective buyer isn't really like, I don't even know how to start this conversation, then you're not making that powerful first impression. So the flip side of it is, what can you do to be welcoming? What can you do to set that other person up for success? And here's like the most simple, basic of all the things I could say here, but yet it's often overlooked, is introduce yourself to somebody. Oftentimes we just like, hi, how are you? Or, oh, welcome, but if you just say to somebody like, Tom, it's nice to meet you, I'm Nikki. Now it shows like, oh, we're engaged. And now you have permission to use my name because I just gave it to you. And you can do that at networking meetings. You can do that when you're out and about in your communities. You can do it when people walk into the store, your place of business, whatever's going on for you. But make it easy for people to be in conversation with you. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to let them know who you are.
Someone who's listening to this might be saying, okay, well, I get some of this, Nikki. It makes sense. I like your formula, but I'm a pretty solid salesperson, all right? I've been a seller. I've been selling for a while. I'm the founder of my business. Nobody sells the way that I do or as great as I can, right? You've probably bumped into that. And so our clients are in a position, or someone who listens into this, where they're growing their business. And that's maybe they're adding staff and they're now adding new salespeople to their team. So they're adding these folks in, Or it might be through franchising, where we help our clients franchise their business. And now they're adding franchisees into the system that they need to teach them how to sell. So I don't know if you want to break each of those up or if they're one and the same, that they can kind of be lumped in the same category together. But I think that'd be a really interesting conversation for you to share how your formula and approach might apply in those scenarios.
Yeah. So thank you for asking this question. I find that a lot of times successful business owners, you get to a place where you're like capped, right? You only have so much time in a day. You only have so many people that you can interface with. But realistically, many people on your team are interfacing with your clients, whether it's your franchisees or whether it's your, just client, whoever you're selling to, right? And if you're not prepping them, your team, or those anybody who's client facing has an opportunity to earn repeat business. They have an opportunity to upsell, the next thing to somebody. And they have the ability to also, unfortunately, like cost you business, like keep somebody from coming back based on how they interact with somebody. So one of the two most crucial pieces that I think of the selling staircase that you've got to get your team on board with is one, how to create curiosity and plant seeds during conversations. This could be your accounting person. This could be your salesperson. This could be somebody in the warehouse. Again, anybody who's client facing that has the opportunity to have a conversation with a prospective client. If you teach them how to create some curiosity and how to plant seeds in conversations, it opens the door for your client or your customer or prospect in this case to go like, oh, I didn't even know you guys did that. Or, oh, I'd never thought about that as a solution for my, what we've been working on. So an example of it is, let's say that they're talking to their account manager or they're talking to somebody in accounting, and accounting looks at, what this person is buying from you. And they say, I noticed that you've been on this program with us for XYZ number, of months or years or whatever. Are you familiar with this other program that offers like a more robust option? Like even just planting that seed, and the person goes, no, I didn't know about that. Tell me more. Right now you have the opportunity. And if it's not appropriate for the accounting person to tell more, then they bring the salesperson in and go, let's set up a time for you guys to have this conversation, because this might be something for you to take a look at. Because one of the mistakes that often happens is we assume that our existing client base, that they know everything that we offer and what's possible for them. But maybe you told them that when you first were earning their business, but if they've been a client for a while, they've forgotten. They don't know what else you offer. They don't know what else is possible for their business. And so your team and you have to be bringing these things into the conversation. And the way I think about this from a sales side is this is about increasing lifetime value of your clients and customers. And if you're not helping your team sell for you and plant seeds, create curiosity, and then recognize and act on buying signals, you're leaving money on the table and you're not going to get the total lifetime value out of that client that's possible.
As you were describing that, I was thinking about an email newsletter or an email blast that might go out that might hit their inbox where you're saying, well, we offer this, or we offer that, or here's this product, or here's this discount on this new thing we're doing, or a new program. And there's a lot of noise in an inbox and even in text messages today. So for someone in the, like you described, in the accounting department, in the implementation or fulfillment department that might be fulfilling those orders, right, in some way in daily operations, having that conversation with someone, I can see how that would really make a big impact to get that reintroduced.
And the other thing too is that a lot of times, if you don't train your team how to do this, they feel uncomfortable doing it. But if you're not training your team to do it, then your client can sometimes feel like they're missing out because nobody is ever looking at their account and saying, here's what else is possible for you. They'll actually appreciate that. Even if they say like, no thanks, they'll appreciate that your team cares enough about them to say, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or are you going to need some support in the coming months around XYZ? Because we have an offer around that. Like it shows that you're paying attention. And don't we want to give our business and our money to the people who pay attention and don't just treat us like a big old wallet or a dollar sign on our forehead? So getting your team on board with this is so crucial to your success.
That's a great point. And I know even as a consumer myself, just thinking of this, speaking out loud, I'm sure someone who listens in has probably gone through a similar thing where I'm working with a company or I buy something from a company, and things are going well. I'm a happy customer. And then I go and buy whatever, another product, another service, and find out that 6 months later, I talk to, let's say, an account manager or my operations manager or somebody from company A that I had worked with. And they say, oh, you're doing business with such and such. We offer those services. And I think, oh, well, if I had known, I would have happily given my money to you versus, company A versus company B, because I already like you. I already do business with you. You've provided quality service. So that's a point well taken.
Never assume that your clients know what's possible for them and what all you can provide to them. That's your job. I always say, like, your job is to earn the business, and you've got to earn the business by planting seeds, by putting things in front of people, by asking questions to find out, like, what else would they benefit from, and never assuming that they know everything that you sell or what's possible for them with your business. That's not their job to know it. It's yours.
Well, let's apply this a little bit to a new franchisee that's entering into a sales system or into a franchise system. A lot of times, franchisees, they may be great operators or, quote, managers, but they may not come from a sales background, right? They're great at executing a system. That's why they're joining in with a franchise. So I'd love for you to maybe talk about if there would be anything you would do differently between, say, adding a salesperson to an existing operating territory or location versus adding a new franchisee that may not have a strong sales background. What might you suggest to a franchise system doing that?
Well, one is actually providing some sales training for them. Don't assume that just because they signed up to have a franchise that they're going to knock it out of the park on sales. Most business owners have had zero sales training. And I think one of the mistakes that people often make is they think that sales is something that it either comes naturally to you or it doesn't. And that's baloney. Everybody can be trained to sell successfully, but you've got to give them the tools. So I personally think that sales training should be part of that the onboarding process. And if nothing else, to just kind of explain to them, like, here's what we have found to be the most successful way to earn business, to, get repeat business, and some of that might involve, I actually do this for companies. I go in and actually train their teams, and then, or they give their teams access to my content that when they bring on a new franchisee, that they're able to give them, like, here's some modules for you to go through, because it is the thing about sales is it's like building a muscle. You got to work it. They need time to practice. They need that, to be inspired to have the conversation and then understand what happened in the conversation. Did it go well? Did it not go well? And then, like, what do I do in these situations? It went well, so what do I do next? Or it didn't go well. What can I do to recover? So I truly think that sales training should be a part of the onboarding process. If you really want to set your franchisees up for success, don't assume that they're already going to know how to sell. Because I will say, I work with so many business owners. People who've been in business for 30 years will tell me, like, I've never been comfortable with selling. I need some help. And, you teach them these little techniques and strategies that allow for them to still have their own style to do it. And now we see the skyrocket of the closing of the deals. It gets so much easier. And the easier it is for the seller, the easier it is for the buyer, because they're more comfortable in the conversation.
Great feedback. And I think that word you use, assume, right?
Yeah.
Don't assume. And it's very easy to do, to say, well, this new hire or this new franchisee, they check some boxes on paper, on a checklist. Yes, they've got the experience, check. Yes, they've done XYZ in their career, check, and so on. But you can't assume they know the process, or maybe they've forgotten the process. A lot of times franchisees, they're middle-aged, and yeah, they might have done that 20 years ago in their career, but it's been quite some time since they've been involved with that. So I think that's a great takeaway there for sure. How can someone find out more about what you're doing, get a copy of your book?
Oh, thank you for asking. I always like to give a gift when I get to come and be with an audience. So I do have an ebook. It's called Closing the Sale, and it talks through the kind of those last three steps and gives some language suggestions. I will happily gift this to your audience. For anybody listening, you can get it by going to yoursalesmaven.com/multiply. So this is for your audience. Happily gift that to you. I also have my own podcast called Sales Maven. So if you're looking for some strategies and techniques around sales, there's tons of episodes there. I think we're at 240 some episodes now that you can get access to that. But yeah, that's how to get a hold of me.
Love it. Well, thank you for sharing and appreciate that. And as a fellow podcaster that's in a comparable number of episodes, I appreciate the stamina that I know you have to get to that many episodes. So great job and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure we include links in the show notes. Well, Nikki, this is a great time in the show. We make a transition and we ask every guest the same 4 questions before they go. And the first question is, have you had a miss or two in your journey and something you learned from it?
I would say I've had many misses in my journey. You know, one of the big misses that I would say early on in my business is, you hear a lot when you're in a coach, like as a coach, that it's like, oh, have a group program. Like group program, it's the most time efficient. You're going to make the most money off of that. And so launching a group program when I was first starting, and I now tell business owners, like, be careful, because it's a little bit demoralizing when you feel like, well, I can't fill a group. Well, you can't fill a group yet because you don't have a big enough audience. So instead of trying to fill a group program, what I recommend to people now, and I do this and I test this all the time still in my business, and I just actually this month is my 11th year in business, is I'll test an offer to an individual, coaching client first before I turn it into any kind of a group program to see, like, how does it go? What do they like? What are they getting out of it? And it's easier to sell one than it is to sell 20 or 30 in that particular case. So I would say for me, the big miss was always like thinking, oh, group program is the way to go. No, start off one at a time.
Well, I appreciate that. And especially in today's world, it is the big thing now. So, group coaching. The message, while it sounds great because you're helping multiply, getting more people in, but is that really what people are reaching out to you for? Is that what they want? Do you have a large enough audience for that? I think that's well taken. Great lesson learned. Well, how about a make or two? Let's look on the other side, a win or a highlight you'd like to share.
Kind of even building off of what I just said is that once I figured out, like, okay, so for me, building my business started in this private coaching. So doing private coaching, coaching programs, extended period of time for people. And once I had done enough of those, then I really started to listen to my clients that were saying, Nikki, we want access to you on a monthly basis, but we don't necessarily need this like deep dive coaching with you because we've got the skills, right? Like we just want to be able to ask you questions when situations come up. So from there, I actually built a community that gives people access. And that has been one of the most rewarding parts of my business because it allows people to stay as long as they want and still get access to me at a much lower, more economical price point for them. It also allows kind of new people to come in and like dip their toe in the water if they're not ready to commit to a larger program. And what I found in my business is that by starting with the private coaching and then moving to having this group offer, I still do private coaching, and that's a big chunk of my business. But having this group offer has become the foundation that people then pop back out. So they'll work with me, privately for a while. They'll stay in the group program so they still have access. And then when something changes in their business, they're ready for that next private coaching opportunity. And so it continues to kind of feed itself. And that has been, frankly, one of the biggest revenue generators in my business consistently since I think I launched that program in 2017.
Very interesting. Well, I like how you describe that because it reminds me of, now I'm not a big workout person or anything, but just tying this back to fitness and health, it reminds me of where an athlete plateaus at some point, and then they need a breakthrough. They've got to change things up. So I find it interesting. The individual coaching is for those breakthrough moments, right? Where they
Yes.
really need something tailored, specific. They break through, they start getting to this next level. They go into kind of a holding pattern in your group coaching and then come back when they're ready for that next breakthrough. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it reminds me of. Let's talk about a multiplier you've used to grow yourself personally or professionally, or a business that you've run.
When I think about what has been some of the biggest multipliers in my business is that I like to put myself in like personal and professional development coaching programs or masterminds where I always say like I like to be the dumb poor one in the group. Like I like to put myself in rooms with people who are ahead of me in business. Like I never want to be the big fish in the room. I always want to be the small fish feeling like, should I even be here? Like this feels like a stretch for me. And that has really helped, I think, grow me personally and has helped my business grow because you get to see people who are bigger thinkers, people who have already done all the stuff that I could even think of and, knocked it out of the park and get to hear the way their thought process works. So that for me is the multiplier is I invest quite a bit of money in my personal and professional development to challenge myself to be, like I said, the dumb poor one in the room. Like I never want to be the person who's making the most money and I don't want to be the person that's the most successful either.
The final question that we ask every guest before they go is, what does success mean to you?
Success at this point in my life to me means being able to be generous. And I mean that in every aspect of my life, generous with the people I love, generous with money, with people who, have less than me to be able to give. I like to gift quite a bit of money away and also to be generous with my clients as well. Having a level of success where I'm not feeling that pressure all the time of like, I got to sell something, I got to sell something, I got to sell something, and not have to worry about if I give clients a little bit of extra time or if I knock, some money off of pricing, off of a program for them to make it more affordable. Success to me is being generous.
Very, very well said. I really resonate with that message. I think it's great. As we bring this to a close, is there anything you are hoping to share or get across that you haven't had a chance to yet?
I will say, I always like to leave people with this one piece of advice, which might seem basic, but realistically, I find that so many people hold themselves back. If you come across somebody who would potentially benefit from what it is that you offer, don't ever hold yourself back from issuing that invitation. Just simply say to somebody like, hey, have you ever thought about, or is there ever an opportunity where we could work together? Issue those invitations because what you'll find is a lot of times people who you think maybe would never hire you or never need your services, they will actually, and they'll be flattered that you asked. Most of us like to be invited to things. And if not them, then it plants that seed to open the door when they do come across somebody who's a good fit to think about, oh, I need to introduce this person to Tom. So please invite people to work with you when you know that you have something that would benefit them in some way. And it doesn't have to be an aggressive, like, do you want to buy from me? It's like, hey, have you ever considered what it would look like for us to work together? Or would you ever consider?
Nikki, thank you so much for a fantastic interview. And let's go ahead and jump into today's 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is when Nikki talked through the 5 steps of her sales process called the selling staircase. Step 1 is the introduction. Step 2 is create curiosity. Step 3 is discovery. Step 4 is proposal. And step 5 is the close. Takeaway number 2 is when she said that most sellers and most salespeople end up skipping steps in the sales process, or they tried to skip steps, which then breaks down the process and actually makes it more complicated or more difficult. Takeaway number 3 is when I asked Nikki to apply the sales process and how that might work in a franchise setting. And she said, well, the problem and challenges she's seen in franchise settings and training franchisees is that there's an assumption by the franchisor that the franchisee knows how to sell. And her suggestion is to make sure that part of your new franchisee onboarding and training includes sales training as part of it. And now it's time for today's win-win. So today's win-win comes from the end of the episode when Nikki gave just a great golden nugget of advice. And she said to make sure that you are asking people if there's an opportunity to work together. And she gave this phrase. She said, quote, "Is there ever an opportunity for us to work together?" Unquote. Or something along the lines of, have you ever considered what it would look like for us to work together? To ask people that. As a seller, you have an obligation to do that. Remember, you're inviting someone in. And I thought that was just a great takeaway because it's going to be a win for that person, that maybe potential customer, and they will either rule themselves out or rule themselves into whatever you're offering. And two is it's going to be a win back to you because you'll have clarity on where they stand. Either they're going to move forward as a customer or they won't, and they'll say, not right now, or maybe in the future, or no, this is not what I want to purchase right now. And just as a way of practice and being an example for you to follow, dear listener, I would ask you, do you know anyone who might want to also listen to our podcast that you could forward this to? I'd really appreciate you forwarding this episode to someone that might benefit from hearing about this sales presentation, or maybe someone on your staff or team or someone you know. And so that's the episode today, folks. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast and give us a review. And remember, if you or anyone you know might be ready to franchise your business or take your franchise company to the next level, please connect with us at bigskyfranchiseteam.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you back next week.